Hello and welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to be hosting all of you today at one of our ILUS shareholder events. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Claire Alan-Addy, the Global Marketing Director at ILUS International. I feel like I've spoken to many of you already on Twitter and via email, so I'm really glad to meet some of you face to face today. So what can you expect? The agenda will be an update via this short video. So you'll shortly hear from Nick Link and John Paul Blackwell on all the great things that ILUS has been working on and all of the things we have to look forward to. You can then enjoy the free bar, the hors d'oeuvres that will come round, and of course, do feel free to come and chat to us as well and ask us your questions. We will answer as much as we're able to. And before I hand over to JP and Nick, who'll be speaking primarily about the growth, acquisitions, and the progress towards NASDAQ, which I'm sure you're very excited about, I just wanted to let you know that we have made huge progress on marketing so far this year. We've increased our reach, we're engaging with shareholders and potential shareholders in Asia, we're making numerous improvements to acquisition websites and also social media campaigns. And you'll see there are many more continuous improvements to come, and we'll carry on supporting the growth of these companies and of course the innovative technology that they provide. It is an exciting time to be part of ILUS. No 2 days are the same, and we're always working on things behind the scenes. So with that in mind, I won't make you wait any longer, and I'll hand you over to JP for the full update. And thank you so much once again for joining us. I really hope that you have a great event.
Thanks, Claire, and good evening, ILUS family. I'm JP Blackwell, the Managing Director at ILUS, and I'm very pleased to say that I'm actually coming to you from the Boca Raton, Miami area, which is great news primarily because it will soon be the home of our new ILUS US head office and what will go on to become our NASDAQ HQ, which is really exciting for us. But first, let me just say a huge thank you for joining us at the shareholder meetup. And for those who listen to this afterwards, thank you and welcome. I really wanted to start by taking this opportunity to remind everyone why we got into this game, why we will go on to NASDAQ, and why we will go on to dominate the first response industry in the USA and then even globally. Our number one priority is and always has been to provide innovative technology, disruptive technology to first responders, which will enable them to do their jobs more efficiently and more safely in order that they will save more lives. But what we saw, and really the reason we got into this, is this massive multi-billion-dollar industry where the most selfless first responders and consequently the communities which they serve are just not being supported by the most innovative technology that could be available to them, despite all the money that's being spent on it. So let me just make it clear that ILUS, along with our ILUS family, will change this. The technology available to first responders really is in dire need of reform. And so we at ILUS are bringing transformation in this area. And so I'm not just talking about fire trucks and nozzles, although that's part of our foundation, but we will transform the entire public safety industry or sector from end to end. Now, we've always known that truly making an impact would require a significant and a sustained team effort. Hence, our focus has been on building a long-term and a sustainable company supported by a family of shareholders, yourselves, who in return for joining us on this journey can play a role in the life-saving impact we're making and can truly receive life-changing returns on their ILUS investment. So this is what we mean when we talk about adding shareholder value and why ILUS is truly such a one-of-a-kind company. So yes, we'll go into NASDAQ and Nick will shed more light on that shortly, but keep in mind why we do what we do and the vision which you're supporting. NASDAQ is a massive milestone. I talk about it a lot and I'm really never making light of that, but it's one of many milestones on our path, which really is to make significant and lasting change. Okay, so now you'll have seen our Q3 results and that it was our best quarter yet in terms of revenue. So I trust you're all feeling really positive about that. We also know that Q4 will be really strong for us and we're well on track to hit our targets for the year. So you can be confident in that. One thing we always do at ILUS is deliver. And so to that end, we originally communicated that our focus was on acquiring manufacturing capability and routes to market in the US. And you'll have seen that we're delivering on the first phase of this. As per those press releases we put out, we've agreed and signed the offers and heads of terms for the acquisition of 3 US companies, which provides us with the US manufacturing capability of ILUS vehicles, of our electric vehicles, of ILUS firefighting pumps, and then very importantly, our very own US distribution network. So now we're already moving into our second phase of acquisitions, where we'll be adding more manufacturing capability in the UK and in Europe. And we'll also, very importantly, be adding multiple distributors of our firefighting equipment technology across the US. We literally plan to acquire a distributor in almost every state of the US, and that will put us en route to complete dominance of the US firefighting equipment markets. I guess by the time of already watching this video, we may have announced the signing of pre-contract agreements with a further 1 or even 2 acquisitions, which are very significant for ILUS. We plan to add the first of our fixed firefighting system capability in the US, which will also come with extremely significant contracts in the Orlando area. And then in the UK, we're in the process of acquiring more specialized manufacturing capability with contracts all over Europe and even as far afield as Australia. Now we've reached agreement on the numbers for the UK acquisition. We're just waiting on some fine tuning by the attorneys before we announce the details. Maybe even by the time we have these meetups, I would have been able to announce something there. So that will mean that within 5 months, we will have signed pre-contract agreements for the acquisition of around $25 million of additional revenue, which is huge. And it's great progress on all of our parts. And that, of course, doesn't include the revenue from the 3 acquisitions in the first and second quarters of this year. And bear in mind that we're only just midway through November, with momentum growing and a more experienced team, which is really only getting into its stride. So that could likely increase before year end. Now, this revenue also doesn't include the likes of the potential Californian acquisition, the large European deal, or astronomical European deal, as it's often referred to, and rightly so. It doesn't include any deal with the likes of Milk Holdings, where things are still progressing very well, or the $100 million revenue plus acquisition that forms part of our NASDAQ uplisting plans. So I guess, should we be successful with our current round of acquisitions, and we have a history of success, I might add, it looks as though we'll begin 2022 with around 35, possibly up to even $45 million in additional revenue, and a large number of incredibly valuable assets on our books before we ramp it up into the new year. And I've mentioned previously that we as ILUS are building a global conglomerate. Gosh, it's a mouthful of a word. And there are truly so many things which are already underway behind the scenes regarding that. Again, I don't want to steal any of Nick's thunder. So let me just share briefly where we're also focusing our growth efforts at the moment. It's important for you to bear in mind that we are in the process of adding the highest quality assets into ILUS. And I'm sure you realize that the more valuable the assets are, the higher the valuation we can achieve. And I guess you can deduce what you need to from there. So whilst our next phase of acquiring multiple routes to markets for our technology in the US and globally is already underway, we are also simultaneously acquiring or merging with multiple game-changing software solutions for the first response industry. Now, I've explained the reasoning behind this in a previous video, but I just wanted to reassert that this strategy is already very much underway. One such discussion, which is already underway, is where we're looking to acquire very innovative sensing technology, which will prevent multiple fires, including electric vehicle fires. Very, very exciting that. We're also looking at multiple communications solutions and some very revolutionary wearable technology solutions. Our acquisitions and our partnerships in the software space will be nothing less than astronomical, to use that word again. What we're doing is disruptive. It's not conventional, but we know it's what's needed to transform the industry we're in. So in summary, we've come a hell of a long way in less than a year, and I'm sure you can see this by our results. Our roadmap is extremely clear, and Nick will certainly be sharing more on that. But I personally know if you're still on this journey with us at this point next year, I'll be reporting on, amongst other things, our NASDAQ performance. But hopefully even more than that, I'll be able to share the many stories of communities we've made safer and the lives that have been saved through the technology, or the many different technologies which we all own and that have made that possible. So really with that, let me hand over to the man who started it all, my friend, our founder, our CEO, Mr. Nick Link. And thank you once again to everyone for joining us and for your much appreciated ongoing support. We really are grateful for that. Over to you, Nick, and thanks everyone.
Hi everybody, it's Nick, CEO of ILUS International. Just here to talk a little bit about the spin-out that people have been speculating about or talking about. I will be releasing a much longer video which will discuss it in much more detail, potentially put a couple of different options on the table for people to think about. And there's obviously a lot of work to be done in that regard, and we're sort of limited on what we can actually say to to our shareholders, current and future, at this point, as all the professional teams are working on all the different options and different solutions. I can tell you that we're quite a long way down the different options, quite a long way down the work that needs to be done in preparation. But I think what's quite important for people to understand, and I'm sure everybody's already gathered this, from being a shareholder or following us for a while. We're trying to build a conglomerate of a business here. ILUS, we're trying to create this into something substantial and create substantial shareholder value. And for that, we have a very clear plan. And I would like to think that our shareholders have already seen us execute on this plan so far, which we'll continue to do. And on that basis, I would hope that the shareholders will trust in our decision making as we sort of move closer to an uplisting announcement. That everything would have been considered, everything would have been taken into consideration. All the professional teams would have been, consulting correctly on the right matter. We would have selected the correct professional teams, etc., investment banks and attorneys and whatever. There's a hell of a lot that goes into an uplist, and there's been a lot of speculation about whether we're going to reverse into a SPAC or whether we're doing a spin out or a split off or one of these various different options that are discussed or on the table, let's say. I think in the longer video that will be released after this, for the people that are interested in it, I sort of discuss the different options in a little bit more detail. But at this point, I sort of just want to leave a couple of thoughts, a few thoughts with you. The first one is that if we were going to do a spin out, because this is a question we get regularly. If you spin the business out for an uplisting, what would be left in ILUS? I think there was a spin out in another company, the OTC company a little while ago that didn't go so well. I didn't really follow the exact details, but I think it was a classic. I'm not saying this was what happened, but I think there's a classic scenario on the failed spin outs where the good assets get moved out and nothing gets left in the old company, and the old company just eventually disintegrates or dies a slow death, which is obviously not our strategy at all. I think if you've probably Googled the word conglomerate or had a look at sort of some of the discussions and videos that we've put out in the past, our plan is to create subsidiary companies that are operating in big enough markets of their own, and have enough technical skills and enough technology in their stable, that each one of those subsidiaries has its own potential uplisting potential. So the true form of a spin out is when an underlying subsidiary company is potentially undervalued or unable to reach its true potential, while it's sitting as a subsidiary of a fully operating business. So if we just talk through that model a little bit more, in our particular scenario, which again I'll go on in more detail in the bigger video, but within ILUS we've got fire and rescue products, which are specialists for the fire brigades, let's say a responding team, and that's the current core firebug products. That would be nozzles and pumps and small firefighting vehicles, rapid response vehicles, etc. That's about a $10 billion-ish market and growing relatively quickly. It's 8 to 10 billion. So, that's got its own potential. We've got very unique IP. We've got very unique routes to market. We've got a clear strategy on acquiring our routes to market, acquiring our manufacturing, and developing a real big technology offering going forward with IoT, drones, wearable tech, etc. Then within ILUS, we've also got the fixed systems business, which we're starting to commercialize now with the commercial kitchens being the first product. And following on from the commercial kitchens, there'll be a product for transformers, product for conveyor belts for the mining sector, for paint rooms, for robotic arms on automobile factories, that type of thing. And for the luxury marine market, super yachts, etc. those products are completely different channel, different distribution methods, different product completely. Although it uses the same technology, the same patents, the actual product is different. And the sales channel is different, the sales time is different, the customer is different, absolutely everything around that business is different. And that business on its own, again, is about a $10 to $11 billion market, so in the fixed systems business. And then we have our eRaptor, which has its own potential under the EV market, which I think is roughly also an $8 to $10 billion market. That's in a specific niche under UAVs, or UTVs, should I say, utility vehicles. So again, that has really no direct link with the fire and rescue products business. There's no direct link with the fixed systems business products. It's completely standalone. So yes, the eRaptor is used within the fire and rescue products. We use that vehicle a lot on our business, on our products that we sell to the small fire trucks. But on the other hand, that product has got its own potential to be sold through agricultural distributors, through normal industrial equipment distributors, because that is its own vehicle. It's its own piece of equipment, nothing to do with the other two in theory. So again, that business also has, as we develop that product range further, that business also has potential uplisting capabilities of its own. So we're now looking within the ILUS stable as we stand now. We've got fire and rescue in an $8 to $10 billion market, potential to uplist. We've got the fixed response business, the fixed firefighting system business, which again, similar sort of size market, again, its own potential. And then we've got the EV business, and there's potentially a fourth asset that's going to come into the business in the next little while. So just to give you an idea of, in terms of an uplisting potential, what we could be working on or what we might be thinking, because as I've said, we're not at liberty to say much at this point. All those businesses are at different life stages. The fire and rescue business is very far along. It's commercial. It's generating all the revenue for the business at the moment. It's doing really well, and it needs to spread its wings. And then we've got the fixed firefighting business, which is just coming along now. We're just getting the first approval out from the commercial kitchen system through quite soonish. And then we've got to roll out the other product range and get those commercially, rolled out throughout the world. So that one's sort of, let's say, stage 2 in the life cycle. And then there's the eRaptor, which is sort of a similar stage as the fixed systems. We use the product a lot, but it's been adapted for the for the fire and rescue market, but with a little bit more modification, a little bit more sexing up, and getting it a little bit more, let's say, automobile-y. So it looks a little bit nicer, a little bit more commercially looking, not too industrial. That product's going to be ready to be rolled out as well through early to mid part of 2022. On a commercial terms. So hopefully that just puts enough, let's say, fuel in your tank for you guys to see, what the potential is within our business at the moment and within our group, and what we might be, so you guys can actually start to think about what we might actually be planning to do. We'll definitely be telling more information about it. I talk about these topics in a lot more detail in the longer video, which will be released later. But hopefully, from that, people will be able to understand, the scale of what we're working with. We're not a one-trick pony. We haven't got one product in our stable. We've got to build a whole lot of different management teams that have different skills, different experience, in different sectors, different markets, etc. So, please don't be concerned. Don't worry that we are, if there was a spin-out to happen, we're going to, leave the nest empty. That's definitely not the case. As a conglomerate, as I said before, if you looked at a conglomerate, it has multiple subsidiaries with listing potential. Some of them it lists for various different reasons, and some it never lists. But ultimately, the conglomerate parent is always the main machine. The one that finds the assets, buys the assets, incubates them, grows them up, and eventually spins them off or divests them. That's a typical process. If you look at Berkshire Hathaway or GE or any of the big conglomerates, that's sort of how it usually works. So hopefully that's enough for today. As I said, I'm sorry we can't tell you more. We'd love to share all the ins and outs of what's going on, but all I can say is, I think you're going to like it. It's exciting. It's going to add a lot of shareholder value. We're pretty sure of that. And we look forward to exploring this in next chapters with you guys. So thanks very much. Signing out.